Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 282. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another fantastic show, family. Please, before we start the show, grab a pen and a notepad because I'm sure you're going to want to take some notes. Today, we're going to be talking with Miss Cheryl Grace, and she's a senior vice president at Nielsen, which is the research and data company. So you've probably heard of the Nielsen ratings, where they actually do research on all types of consumer behavior. And today's show topic is what your business needs to know about Black consumer spending habits. So we're going to be breaking down the latest report from Nielsen about Black consumer spending habits and how you can tap into those habits to continue to build your business and serve our community. Now, before we get to today's episode, I just want to share a few things with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. First and foremost, if you are a first-time listener to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and also all my resources, such as my new book, A New Black Wall Street, and also my 2 platforms where we can help circulate the Black dollar in the Black community worldwide. So stay tuned for Miss Cheryl Grace from Nielsen. And today's show topic is what your business needs to know about Black consumer spending habits. A don't miss episode. I want to welcome to the show Miss Cheryl Grace, the SVP of U.S. Strategic Community Alliances and Consumer Engagement at Nielsen. Cheryl, how are you this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Jay. I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Most definitely. We really appreciate you sharing your time with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. And you have a very timely topic. It just so happens that somebody in your PR firm reached out to me about a podcast that I had done. I believe it was in August. It was episode number 263, and it's titled, Here's What They Think About You, Why Other Ethnicities Think We're a Joke in Business and in General. And when we got an email from you guys, it was right on time, but it was tough for us to coordinate. I know you were traveling a lot, so I want to thank you so much for being able to share a little bit of time with the BEB family. And for those of you that are not familiar with Cheryl, can you just give a little personal background about yourself, and then we'll go into Nielsen and on the actual study that you guys have done.
Absolutely. So I'm Cheryl Grace, and I, as you indicated, am a senior vice president at Nielsen. I've been here since 2005, and in 2011, we started a report called The State of the African American Consumer. Nielsen measures what consumers watch, what they buy, what they listen to, and we thought that the report in 2011 would kind of put us ahead of the curve in helping our clients and consumers alike understand the true power of African Americans and their consumption habits and behaviors. And so we started that one report. That report has grown over time to also include reports on Hispanic consumers, on Asian American consumers, and we release each of these reports each year. So we've been doing it since 2011, and I think that your listeners will find that these reports are really very insightful into why we buy what we buy and how what we buy impacts the U.S. economy. So this year's report is called It's in the Bag, Black Consumers' Path to Purchase. And we really talk about how African Americans get to the point where they make the decision to buy what they buy.
Yeah. Now, if you could just expound a little bit, everybody has heard of Nielsen, but I'm not sure people understand how large Nielsen, the company, is. Can you just expound on that real quick so we can lay a groundwork?
Sure. We're a global company that's located in more than 100 countries around the world. And we have between 35 and 40,000 employees. And as I indicated, we measure pretty much everything: what you buy, what you watch, what you listen to. I think for your listeners, they may think of Nielsen TV ratings when they first hear the name Nielsen, because that's what we're primarily known for here in the United States. But we also measure what you buy at grocery stores, drugstores, convenience stores, how often you're attending the movies, what you're listening to on the radio, how you're using your time on social media platforms. All of that, in essence, is what we do so that we're presenting a holistic picture of consumers to our clients, who happen to be manufacturers, retailers, networks, cable providers, streaming platforms. All of those entities take the information that we provide them and use it in order to provide the best quality, best packaging, best products for you, the consumer.
That's a foundation for the BEB family about Nielsen. Now, Cheryl, we want to jump right in. In this report, and I found it, I didn't read the entire thing, but I read the synopsis, and it's pretty interesting in some of the highlights. How do African Americans make purchasing decisions, and what platforms do you think we're most responsive to?
So there are a couple of things to start off when we talk about the path to purchase, or like we like to call it at Nielsen, the consumer journey. What we know is that it's not a linear path. It's not a linear journey. It's actually more circular. But we find that there's a logic at the end of the purchasing point, because the consumer journey actually begins with research and advertising and recommendations. And individuals literally start by talking to people that they know, your friends, your family, listening to ads, listening to radio and spots on television and radio, and start to make their decisions based on that. And we actually have found that we move through this process very much like other consumers. However, we have some hot spots where we kind of like to linger more than the average consumer does. So number one, I think it's important is to understand that recommendations matter most when it comes to that pre-store or pre-purchase. So Blacks are going to tune into and listen to the recommendations that they get from people they trust as the number one way, primarily, before they make any of those decisions. So that's the number one way. And then what we're finding is that we're tuning in and we're engaging socially with social media. So, for example, if you take a look at social media, what we know is between Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and Snapchat, those are the top 5 platforms where African Americans who are 18 or over are more likely to engage. But it gets interesting when you actually look at where we're engaging the most. So Facebook has about 66% of Blacks are on Facebook. 66% of us over the age of 18 are on Facebook. But that's a little bit under where all populations are tuning into Facebook. So about 2%, right? So 70% of total adults 18 and older are on Facebook. Where you start to kind of see a shift is when you get to Instagram. So when we look at Instagram, about 55% of all African Americans who are over the age of 18 are on Instagram. And what's interesting about that is that that's over-index, or there are about 20% more of us on Instagram than compared to total population. And so a lot of the rationale as to why there are more Blacks over-indexing than other groups on Instagram has to do with our age. We tend to be a younger population when you compare us to the total pop. And so most of us, 54% or more, have actually grown up in the digital age, and we're used to those digital platforms. And so because Instagram tends to attract younger users, that's why you see a higher percentage of index of users for African Americans on Instagram versus, say, Facebook. You'll also see that when it comes to Pinterest, we over-index by about 2%, and Snapchat, again, that's a very useful platform. We over-index by about 3%. And Twitter, you'll find we're over-indexing by about 11%. So these platforms actually offer you an opportunity to kind of weigh in on what you like, what you don't like. And, you know, we're not shy as African Americans or Black people at doing that. And so we don't mind, you know, doing it on these platforms. So when it comes to research, those are the two areas I think that you'll find the usefulness of our population is where we're actually driving on these social media platforms. And then I think the other areas to really be mindful of are the traditional forms of media that, you know, believe it or not, they're not going out of style. They're still very much present and alive and accounted for rather. And radio is still the number one way to reach African Americans. So 92, it's radio. 92, and this is traditional radio, not streaming radio, but it has the highest weekly reach among African Americans because 92% of us can be found listening in any given week to radio. And the next highest weekly reach for African American adults is 91% of us can be found watching television, traditional television. So, you know, given that the options that you have now for media is very fragmented, you can use the information, you can use and find information like we talked about on social media, those non-traditional ways, but it's still the traditional platforms like radio and television that's reaching most of us.
Okay, so Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family members that are listening to this, all right, if you're a business, radio and TV is still number one in our demographic so far, but don't sleep on social media. Now,
don't sleep on social media,
Definitely. I wanted to ask you in terms of, you always hear that, you know, us Black folk, we always spend money on luxury items and things of that nature. Why do you think we over-index in spending in those types of items? I know in the report it talked about certain items that we over-index in. Can you touch on that from the information that you've gleaned in the report and also your personal opinion?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's really important for Black business owners and corporations alike to understand that the average household expenditure for the United States is about $42,500. That's all households. That's how much money they spend on average that actually leaves their household. So the expenditures, right? But for Black households, the average expenditure is $43,117. So Black households are actually expending more than total households. And that's something that you don't hear a lot about. A lot of people get hung up on the fact that some of our household incomes may be smaller than average household incomes, et cetera, and they'll stop, you know, thinking about Black consumers there. But it's not what's coming in, it's what's going out that should be important to business owners and to corporations. And so the areas where we tend to overspend versus the general market is on housing, on apparel, on transportation, on personal care products, on TV, radio, and sound equipment. Those are areas where, as a percentage of our total household expenditures, we tend to overspend. So if you've got any businesses or business owners who are listening in who has a business in those areas, those are really important areas to kind of keep in mind. So what I can't do is overlook just like the everyday purchasing habits of African Americans, because people want to focus on luxury items and, high-end items, and that's all well and good. But the buying power of the Black population is expected to be more than $1.5 trillion by 2023. So that's $1.5 trillion to spend every single year that we're expected to buy more of or to spend more of by 2023. That's not just happening with those luxury items. That's happening with a lot of just everyday items as well. So when you take a look at what we're spending our money on and how much we're spending our money on, we're actually having a pretty big impact on some of those categories as well. So something as simple as Quaker grits, we're spending as Blacks like more than $19 million a year on quick grits. Not to be confused with the regular slow cooking grits where we're spending about $2.6 million a year. So when you take a look at food categories, what's driving our spend is a lot of the cultural nuanced food categories. So we just left the Thanksgiving table, and I'm sure in most households, not all, but in most households, I'm sure there were greens on the table, macaroni and cheese on the table, in addition to some of the more standard delectable items that you get at Thanksgiving. Glory Food Greens, for example, even though we use fresh greens, Glory Foods Greens does a great job at about $783,000 a year just on those greens. And, and I know in our house, we take some of those greens and we mix them with fresh greens. Exactly. There's another, like the live fresh greens, not the canned greens for Glory Foods. We spend about $7 million on those cooking greens. So when you take a look at how we're spending our money, you have to factor in the importance of culture and how we're spending our dollars on those items that reflect that culture.
You said something that actually surprised me when you talked about the average household expenditure for the norm is $42.5, and for the Black household is $43,117. And just because our average household income, unfortunately, is less than the norm. So even though we're making less, we're still spending more money annually, hard dollars out of our own pockets. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was with this information, how do Black entrepreneurs really take advantage of this information in terms of putting dollars in their own pockets and serving the community? What are your personal thoughts on that as everybody talks about Buy Black?
Yeah, so for me, it is don't give up on your people and don't short end your people. So oftentimes we don't give ourselves the same amount of latitude or flexibility that we would give other consumers, or that as consumers we would give other businesses. As a consumer, if a African American company makes one mistake, oh my gosh, we're done with them. We're not going to use them anymore, right? Versus if we go to a fast food restaurant that we frequent really, really very often, and they make a mistake, it's like, I'm so mad at them, they made a mistake, but we continue to go back. So I would say, number one is not to be short-sighted on how we treat each other as consumers or as businesses. And also understanding that, yes, the point that you made is that our household incomes aren't often as high as the average household income is. We are spending more than we're bringing in. In fact, between the year 2000 and the year 2018, Black buying power rose by 114%. compared to an 89% increase in spending power for the average population. So we're spending more, right? Now, I'm sure that there are people who take issue with that and aren't pleased with that that stat, but those are the facts. And so giving ourselves a chance and recognizing the opportunity to step into our buying power and understanding that however we're deciding to spend those collective dollars actually is having a positive influence on somebody's business. It might as well be yours. Right. If you're in business.
You touched on something that I speak about on the podcast many times, and it seems that we seem to hold our Black businesses to a higher standard than we do other businesses. And you hit on the perfect example. Oh, if a store opens 3 minutes late, Black-owned store, oh, this guy is such and such or whatever, and something else happens at another store, it's okay. And that's a psychological factor that we have to deal with. And speaking of psychological factors, why do you think that we continue to support businesses that are disrespectful to us? And I'll give you a couple of examples. Gucci, for example, with the sweater that had the face, basically, the lips on it. And now you have the rapper Gucci Mane, who cuts a deal with Gucci. And a lot of people were saying, hey, what about the boycott? And I talk about in that episode 263, here's what they think about you. Companies and entities are going to continue to do what they do to you until you hit them in the pockets. And so what do you think the psychology behind supporting businesses that don't necessarily treat us right? What do you think? Why do you think we continue to do that?
Well, I know if we take a look at brick and mortar stores and the fact that African Americans actually tend to want to visit a brick and mortar store a little bit more than total population. And once they're in a store, there are certain attitudes and behaviors at that point of purchase that is more likely to make them buy. One of those attitudes or behaviors is how we're treated in the store and how the people who are there at the store, working at the store, treat us. So we like to have a positive experience with personnel when we're in the store. If we don't have that, we're not as likely to have the desire to make a purchase there, right? So don't follow me around. Don't call for me unless I ask for you, because I'm an adult at shopping, and so there's no need to follow me around. But when it comes to brands that make a mistake, and I think it's important as consumers for us to ask ourselves 5 questions when we're thinking about doing business with a particular brand. So the number one question is, excuse me, can this product or brand or service be found in my neighborhood? Like, do I have to go outside of my zip code to find this? The second question is does this product or brand or company people who look like me? The third question is, are the people who look like me or that they're using in their ads or that are working for them being portrayed in a positive way? And the fourth question is, does this brand support causes that are important to my community? So if you ask yourself those 4 questions and you get the answer no from one or all of them, then the 5th question should be, should I be spending my money with this brand? Like, are they deserving of getting my money? And I think if we stop and took a look at asking ourselves those questions for everything from the toilet paper that we're buying to the tube of lipstick to any of the large luxury items that you're just referencing, if we stand back and ask ourselves that, I think we would probably have a different interaction and engagement with brands from low end to high end, because it all adds up to dollars that are benefiting those companies.
I kind of agree with it. I just think that when you continue to support brands that don't necessarily support you or treat you in a manner that you should be treated, which is with respect, which everybody should be treated respectfully. And then you continue to go and support those with your dollars, your cries fall on deaf ears because you're not really affecting where the bottom line is. I also talked about, and it's almost embarrassing to bring it up, I also talked about this Popeyes chicken thing, right? So I don't know who started the whole thing or the advertising campaign. Whoever did it was a freaking genius. But to me, especially what the connotation of chicken is with, you know, our history and slavery and things of that nature, and the watermelon, the fried chicken and all of that stuff. And you got people standing around corners fighting each other for a freaking chicken sandwich. And I just don't understand the idiocy behind that. Can you speak to that in a professional opinion in terms of marketing and research? What do you think was the impetus or the cause for such a furor for people to want these chicken sandwiches?
So from a marketing perspective, it was a genius campaign. When you're trying to launch anything with social media, just like real estate is all about location. Social media is all about engagement. And if you can get a buzz going about your brand or about your product, that's not easy to do. And when you're able to do it at the level that they were with this particular campaign, that's genius. Now, how we conduct ourselves once we're there, that's not on the brand. That's on us as consumers. So some responsibility has to be, you know, we have to be held accountable at some point. But being able to engage consumers and connect with them and going back to a cultural nuance. So, yes, is it a stereotype that African Americans eat, you know, chicken? Perhaps, because guess what? African Americans eat chicken. So there is sometimes a basis for where a stereotype originated. But if you're able to engage and get a dialogue going about a product or a brand, as long as you're not being detrimental to a race, I don't think that there is a downside to that. How you conduct yourselves as consumers once you're at the point of purchase, that's on the consumer.
I wanted to touch on real quick, Cheryl, in terms of the actual, I was looking at some of the highlights of your report, and it says that Black buying power and over-indexing and spending continue to increase. Companies' investments to advertise to them have decreased. Why do you think corporations are not funneling the ad dollars they are to us, since we're very responsive, obviously, in certain index or certain categories? Why do you think that is that's the case right now?
A couple of reasons. Number one, I think that there aren't language barriers as it relates to Blacks here in the United States. And because there are no language barriers, brands assume that they can connect with us and reach us just as they could any other consumer who doesn't have a language barrier. And so they may not be spending as much money on the platforms where we're visible because we don't, quite frankly, demand them to. Yeah. And if we hold them accountable, which again goes back to those 5 questions, like how do you ask for better treatment if you keep going back to the well and accepting what you're getting? There are some companies that are doing a great job of advertising with us and ensuring that they are keeping our media, and we don't have a lot of Black-owned media left, so we need to even clarify that in the report what we talk about is African-American focused media spend, because we only have a few mediums or platforms that are specifically and exclusively Black-owned. But there are entities that are not Black-owned that focus on African Americans. And yes, what we've seen is that the spend on these mediums have actually been decreasing over the last year. And some of it has to do with language barriers. Some of it has to do with marketers thinking that they have to choose either or in order to make their media buys. they think, well, I only have certain amount of dollars, and since Spanish language individuals, won't understand my ads in English, then I need to spend all of my dollars with the Spanish language audience. I think that has something to do with it.
Now, do you think that some of the major corporations purposely don't advertise to our market because they just figure we're going to tag along anyway? Is that a strategy, or what's your thoughts on
it? It is
that?
a strategy. I do think it is a strategy, yes. I think that they're going to buy our products anyway, so we may not need to add additional dollars to attract that consumer segment. Yeah. And
that's something that in itself is kind of disheartening, because they figure, hey, we're just going to follow the trends. And, even though we are major cultural trendsetters, when they feel that they don't necessarily have to spend dollars to attract us, because we're just going to come anyway, that's it's kind of sad, to be quite honest with you.
Especially if we don't demand that they do that.
Exactly.
Especially if we're not asking them to do that. I need you to ensure that, again, that you support causes that are important to me, that I can find you on my channels, in my neighborhood, whatever you're selling, I need to be able to find it on something that is reflective of me and my community. Those are questions we need to ask about. And there are opportunities to use any of these same platforms, whether it's television, radio, social media, to exercise our disbelief, our disappointment when they don't do it. But, if they've been getting by and we haven't demanded any more, then of course they're going to continue to do that. You teach people how to treat you. I tell my son that all the time. You teach people how to treat you. And as consumers, we're doing the exact same thing. We teach brands how to treat us. And if you want to disrespect us and we let you disrespect us, then you're going to continue doing it. So again, and this is not to blame the consumer, but it is to say that there needs to be a little bit more consumer behavior inherent in the purchasing decisions that we make.
Agreed 100% on that. Now, what are your personal thoughts on Byron Allen's lawsuit against Comcast and I forgot the other cable company?
I think it's a very important lawsuit, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds.
In terms, you had mentioned Black focused media versus Black owned media. Now, I always talk about being able to control the media, and obviously economics controls everything. It controls media, it controls politics, it controls education. How important do you feel Black owned and focused media is to the Black community?
I think when we start letting brands that have been beloved disappear, that we're not only losing a part of our history, but we're losing a part of our future and the inherent value that comes from that. And when you let other people tell your story their way, the narrative shifts to their perspective and not necessarily ours. So I think we need to be very careful about not having those opportunities to be visible and to be vocal. And that's why I think this lawsuit that Byron has is very important, because we need to make sure that we're continuing to tell our stories in nuanced ways that resonate with us, but also offer a better reflection of our perspective and not some perspective that may be whitewashed for general market media. So it's really important.
I definitely agree with that. When you mentioned some of our flag bearer or standard media outlets, what's the top one that came to your mind? I'm curious to see if it's the same thing that we lost. That's now
that we lost.
Else.
Absolutely, for me, number one was Ebony Magazine.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So Ebony and Jet and the empire that Mr. Johnson built. I look at some of the other platforms on television or cable, and the stories are still really good stories, because I know the team of executives over at a lot of these networks that are sharing their stories, but still not benefiting from ownership. So
Exactly.
I think that's a missed opportunity. Mr. Johnson became a millionaire. Bob Johnson became a multimillionaire. Like, they had a stake in the game, and they had ownership. And we have to get back to owning our own businesses.
I think just to add to that, one of the things I tell my daughters, they're 24 and 21 right now. I said, today is the best day ever to be an entrepreneur. With the connectivity, with social media, now with the OTT, over the top platforms, where, Byron Allen is trying to get on somebody else's cable platform. But streaming services, you can create your own Roku channel right now. You can create your own podcast, such as I have, and you can create your own website and all types of different media properties and entities right now without having to go and knock on the door and let somebody invite you in. Hey, yes, you can be on my platform. So anybody who's listening to this right now, it's the wild, wild west out here, guys. You don't realize what it was 20, 25 years ago. If you were trying to get your content out there, you were pretty much at the behest of somebody else putting your content out there. So now take advantage of the opportunities, take advantage of technology. And as Cheryl mentioned, you said we are very technology focused when we make our purchasing decisions, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And what you're saying, Jay, is so incredibly important, because now more than ever, we have an opportunity to change the narrative about the stories that we're seeing about ourselves on screens that we're listening to. So niche content has been a game changer for African American storytellers, and we're seeing it most prevalently on video streaming. So Netflix and Prime and Hulu, right? We're actually starting to see stories about us, by us, for us being told on these streaming platforms. That actually rolls over into what is happening on cable and network television, where they recognize that the numbers of viewers are substantially higher when you have stories that are reflective of the cultural nuances of the viewers that they reflect. So that's why you see for Blacks who are 34 and under, you see a lot of reality television because for them, that is a reality about what their lives look like. Whereas you don't see that same kind of allegiance to reality television for adults who are 18 to 34, period, like who are non-Black. And then when you take a look at those of us who are 35 and older, you see a lot of the top 20 programs that we're tuning into are, again, telling our stories, like Empire and Star and Have and Have Nots and Scandal and Greenleaf and If Loving You Is Wrong and 9/11 and Green Sugar and This Is Us. Like, we're seeing that the need and the hunger is there for our stories. And so when we have a chance to tune into stories about us, for us, and by us, we're tuning in. And brands, stations, these streaming platforms, they're not stupid. They don't see color except for the color green. And they understand that there are revenue opportunities in telling these stories and bringing them to light. And so now more than ever, if you have a story to tell, there's generally some platform, as you said, that can help you tell it, whether it's your own podcast, it's your own YouTube station, channel, whatever. You have the opportunity, and marketers are recognizing this. They are absolutely recognizing that this is a fork in the road, and those who aren't going in the direction of multiculturalism are going to get left behind.
Great point. I get a lot of people asking, or a lot of companies, some major companies asking to sponsor my podcast. I don't accept because my podcast is sponsorship free, because I don't want to have to be at somebody's beck and call. If I do a podcast, for example, the one that I 263, here's what they think about you, why other ethnicities think we're a joke in business and in general. So if somebody is paying you money, that means that they control you. So there's some type of control for that exchange. So that's one of the things why I stayed sponsorship free specifically for that. So any budding entrepreneurs out there, I tell people, even if you're working in corporate America and you're complaining, if somebody's paying you, then they have a right to want you to do specifically designed for you to do. So if you're independent, and Damon Dash talks about it all the time, being independent, where you can make moves, invest in yourself, and bet on yourself. So that's what Black Entrepreneur Blueprint is about. It's all about helping and build the Black economy worldwide, since this is actually downloaded over 150 countries or whatever. So a lot of times I keep forgetting because we're here in the States, but I have to keep the content sometime kind of broad in that respect. Speaking of that, Cheryl, I wanted to ask you, do you have reports available, or is there a way that the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family can get access to some of this information if they want to?
Absolutely. All of our reports are available for free online if they go to Nielsen.com. And Nielsen is Nielsen.com. If they want copies of the African American reports, they can just do a / African Americans. So Nielsen.com / African Americans. Or if they just go to Nielsen.com and type in the search bar, Black consumers, African American consumers, Asian American consumers, the reports will start popping up. And also, just for business owners, there's so much incredible information that Nielsen brings to the table that could help your businesses. So we actually do these reports in major corporations, and businesses tend to rely on them pretty heavily. Why not your small business being able to take some of these same insights and rely on them as well and use them for your marketing and strategies and planning? It's available for free. And so I don't think enough people know to take advantage of Nielsen.com, and just, if there's a particular product or service that you have, put it in this little search bar and see what pops up. You'd be surprised at what we have insights on and how you can then incorporate it into your own strategies for building your business.
That's a tremendous resource, family. Make sure you take advantage of that. So as Cheryl mentioned, if multi-billion-dollar companies are using the research, why shouldn't you? And it's free. So definitely take advantage of that type of resource. Even if you're not even in business, just you need to look at it and understand what's going on in the economy and how people market, because that's all we are, guys. Every business is all about marketing. So we're all in the marketing business. So we need to understand exactly what people want, how they get it, the decision-making process. And something you said earlier, Cheryl, was very interesting to me. You had mentioned that we don't make decisions, Black folk, in a linear fashion. You said it's more
right.
circular. Can you just expound on that real quick?
Yeah. So it's just, sometimes you think you're going to research and then you go into the store to buy. So like from point A to point B. But now it is much more circular in that you do research, you listen to advertising, you may go online to see how much something costs, and then you'll go into the store to actually buy it, or maybe you'll go into the store to touch it and then decide it's still cheaper online, so then you'll go do it online. There's no more linear, there's no longer a linear process to the decision making. It is more circular, and it's just kind of like, it's almost like a ping pong ball depending on who you are, because it varies now because you have so many options at which to do your research and get your information from.
Cheryl, I got two quick questions for you, and I'm going to let you go. First and foremost, is there anything that I didn't mention that you feel that the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family needs to hear?
Well, I think understanding that your target audience is very important to identify early on for your overall strategy for your brand. Who are you talking to? Because if you're talking to everybody, you're not talking to anybody. And so ensuring that you are very clear on who that target audience is, what that target market looks like for you, and how do you capitalize on what resonates with that audience. So if you're looking at adults 18 plus, or if you're looking at 18 to 35, like there are various ways to reach those two very distinct audiences. African American consumers are not monolithic. And so you can't treat us as all one just group of people. Make sure you know who you're going after within that group. And Nielsen helps you do that by breaking out some of these insights by including age perspectives. Gender is also important. Those types of things are really important.
So are those reports broken down by that? Or can you search for those specific demographics, or are they just large reports and then they have different segments inside of those? Hope you understand what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, no, I get it. So within the reports, a lot of the information is broken down by adults 18 plus, or adults 18 to 34, or adults 35 plus, men versus women. So a lot of those insights are in there that way. In some areas, we break it down a little bit more. You will find that on all the reports on the Nielsen.com website, that the various reports break down all kinds of subgroups. So just matching up your subgroup to a subgroup that we offer is the best way to do that.
And the last question I ask every guest on the show, Cheryl, you got your thinking cap on? You ready for this one?
I think so.
You ready?
Yeah.
Now, if you could talk to anybody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, it would be my mom. My mom died a little over a year ago, and I miss her every single day and her wisdom. And whenever I had a problem, she just broke it down into your basic mamaism and just gave it to me straight. And sometimes I just miss that straight talk. So it will be my mom, hands down.
All right. I'm sorry to hear about your loss. I know she's still with you, though. Still with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheryl, thank you so much for spending time with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. I mean, this is very enlightening. We finally got a chance to connect. I know you're worldwide. You're traveling like crazy. And we appreciate you sharing with the BEB family. This is awesome. And anytime you have anything you want to share with us, please feel free to reach back out. We're here for you. My platform is here for you. And we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you so much, Jay, for this opportunity. Nielsen thanks you. We're really grateful that this information is something that consumers are finding value in. So thanks a lot for having me on.
All right, family. We got a ton of takeaways from this episode. And this is really about consumer behavior, how we behave as consumers, and how we can tap into this so we can market to and serve our community, but most importantly, support our own community. Once again, we're going to get into this in a brief second, but I just want to share my contact information and a few updates for the BEB family. First and foremost, my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. So if you're interested in building a successful, sustainable e-commerce business, go to anewblackwallstreet.com. Pick yourself up a copy. The digital version I recommend because it's updated and has several new chapters and a fast start guide. That's $9.95. The print version is $14.95. Now, if you need additional assistance building your successful, sustainable e-commerce business, my flagship course, Educated E-Commerce, is available. Just go to educatedecommerce.com and you can enroll in the course. Now, we all know that Black Entrepreneur Blueprint is all about building an economic power base in the Black community. And the only way to do that, family, is to start and support Black-owned businesses worldwide. So I've created two platforms to do so. The first one is BeSmartByBlack.com. BeSmartByBlack.com. If you are a Black product producer and you want to connect and sell to Black consumers worldwide, go to BeSmartByBlack.com and upload your product information. It's totally free. Now, if you are a freelancer and you do stuff on Fiverr or freelancer.com, I've created a platform for you titled HireBlackFreelancers.com, HIRE, blackfreelancers.com. Once again, it is free. So if you want to upload your information and connect with Black consumers and Black businesses worldwide that may be looking for a Black freelancer, please do so. Now, if you want to request me to come out to speak, be it my new book tour for A New Black Wall Street, or if you want me to speak at an organization, church, school, university, please go to bookjjones.com, bookjjones.com, fill out the short form, and I'll get right back to you. Now, all of this information and my social media contact information that I'm about to give you can be found on bebconnect.com, bebconnect.com, like Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, bebconnect.com. Now, if you need to connect with me, like with anything long, just email me at jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, JAYJONES at blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. You can connect with me on Facebook. Go to Facebook, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, JJones001, JAYJONES001. Instagram, JJones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube, please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, guys. I have additional content on YouTube that is not on the show. Yes, the show does come out on YouTube, but I have additional content on there too. Now, also LinkedIn, just go to LinkedIn, type in J Jones Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, connect with me there. If you want to be in the BEB text line to be included for all notifications and reminders about special events, text BEB to 555-888. BEB to 555-888. Once again, everything that I just said can be found on bebconnect.com. It's a page on the website. It'll have all my social media links and it'll have all the resource guides. So go to bebconnect.com. Man, there was so many takeaways that I want to talk about, but I'm just going to limit it to a few. And one of the first things that stood out to me, number one, with Cheryl's interview was when she talked about what the average household expenditure is in terms of in the United States. Now, the average household expenditure is $42,500, but for black households, it's actually higher at $43,117. And that's hard dollars. This is what each household, the average, expends each year on consumer goods and products. So even though by average we have a lower household annual income, we actually tend to spend more than the average of everybody else. So once again, is we're spending on certain things, and there's certain areas that we're spending in. Cheryl mentioned we're over-indexed in housing, apparel, transportation, personal care products, TV, radio, and equipment. Excuse me, things of that nature. So that's where we over-index and overspend. And so one of the things is make sure you go to get the report, Nielsen.com/African American. And Nielsen is spelled Nielsen.com/African American. And the name of the report is It's in the Bag, Black Consumer's Path to Purchase. Also, we had talked about how some major companies treat black folk in terms of media and the lack of the media buys and spending. And Cheryl mentioned something that's dead on point, man. You teach people how to treat you. You teach people how to treat you. And that's in business, that's just in life, and that's in your personal relationships also. You teach them how to treat you. If you allow people to treat you a certain way and you don't fight back, guess what? It's going to continue to happen. And that's what's been happening to us in the retail establishment as consumers. Excuse me. We allow people to treat us anyway. And guess what? If we don't fight back, they're going to continue to treat us that way. That's why we need our own media. We need our own businesses, and we need to support everything that we do. Okay. Now, it's estimated by the year 2023, the U.S. black buying power is going to be, $1.5 trillion a year. So that's a top 10 economy, family. All right. So what we need to do is start continuing to build businesses and also to support those businesses. It takes a conscious effort to support black businesses because we're not on every corner and we're not in the major malls. So we have to go and use the internet, not just for, entertainment, but use it so we can support black owned businesses. And guys, bear with me. I'm still fighting the cold, a little under the weather. And the last thing I just want to talk about is the 5 questions that Cheryl said that we all need to ask ourselves as Black consumers. Question number 1, can the product be found in my neighborhood? Question number 2, do they employ people that look like me? Does the business employ people, or does the brand employ people that look like me? Question number 3, do they have a positive portrayal of our people in their advertising and also in their company? Question number 4, does the brand support causes that are important to my community? Do they have any community service? And question number 5, should I spend my money with these brands? If they don't do those things, then we don't need to be spending our money with these brands and these companies. And once again, the only way to affect change when it comes to corporate America and consumer products is hitting them right in the pocket. And what that means is stop supporting and buying those brands. And I keep talking about this Gucci thing. You know, they got the sweater and I'm not even going to get into it again, but y'all know what I'm talking about. So brands that don't even really market to us. And Cheryl even mentioned in the interview that sometimes they're so complacent, they feel they don't even have to market to us because we're going to buy anyway. What does that tell you? What type of value do they put on us, on how we want to be marketed to, how we want to be treated? Okay. So once again, do not support any business that disrespects you. Think about it as if somebody came up to your face and disrespected you, would you have anything to do with them? No. So why are you letting businesses and corporations and brands disrespect you and you still going over there giving them money? It doesn't make sense. And until we stand up and understand the power that we have, $1.5 trillion estimated by the year 2023. That's the Black buying power. That's just in the United States of America. Recognize and understand the power that we have. Stop being short-sighted. Oh, yeah, I'm going to buy these Gucci's because they look good. Nah, you got to punch people in the mouth. And when I say that, it's not really punching them in the mouth, but I'm using that as an example. You hit them in the pockets. That's how you're going to make a difference. You want people to respect you? Then you hit them where it hurts. Recognize and understand the power that we carry, family. And before we close on out, I just want to say this, and I say it each and every week. We get more and more downloads, and that's because of you, the BEB family. I appreciate you guys. I love you. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast and also the blog and all the resources that I have. Make sure you go to bebconnect.com. Check out all the resources. Share the link. And make sure that you tune in next week. Same time, same place. Love you guys. See you next week. Peace.